Major funding for this production is provided by American Bank of Lafayette, the financial choice of the 80s. Additional funding provided by the Friends of LPB.
The day President John F. Kennedy was murdered in Dallas, her picture was on the cover of Life magazine. The caption said she was Broadway's newest and brightest actress. The year before, she'd won a Tony Award for Take Her, She's Mine. And now she was starring in a play with a young actor named Robert Redford, Barefoot in the Park, which Neil Simon had written just for her. It was the biggest hit in New York. She was starring in a movie, The Carpetbagger, and it made millions. She was 22. And she had what all of us, we don't even dare aspire to it. And if we do, we keep it a great big secret within ourselves. She ended that week in a psychiatric hospital. So much for dreams and dreams that come true. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the very great American actress from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Elizabeth Ashley. Hiya.
Hiya. Boy, my life sounds dramatic when you put it like that.
But it's all the truth, isn't it?
Yes, but then, I mean, there are truths and truths. I mean, those are simply the facts. And facts very rarely tell you the truth. I mean, basically, it's like algebra, you know. I mean, what does pi r squared really mean, you know?
Well, let's try and weave our way in between facts, reality, truth, and maybe even some fiction, which are probably the best parts of all. You moved with the Baton Rouge when you were 4, yes, and departed there in 1958.
Yes.
You went to Dubrock Elementary.
Yes, I did, yes.
The first interesting thing that I found in the vast biographical information that we have on you was that at University High, which you attended, you never were in a school play. I found that so interesting.
Well, I mean, they didn't have many school plays. I mean, they had, like, the senior play.
Yeah.
They did, like, once a year.
Yeah.
And I was in that, but I had a non-speaking part. I played, it was, You Can't Take It With You, the coffin play. I played Essie, the ballerina, but it was a cut version they do for high schools, and so all I had to do was, you know, sort of bubble around in my tutu and sort of look terribly cute and not say anything.
You went to LSU for a semester.
Well, yes, but you see, I went to high school directly across the street from Fraternity Row at LSU, so I'd been working LSU for like 5-6 years or something. It was old news already.
Now, I think that your final exam at LSU is a part of lore. Please tell me whether or not it's true. Here's the story.
My final exam?
Well, here's the story that is in some of the...
I know who told you this. All right. Oh, I know who told you this. Can't keep his mouth shut. All right, go ahead.
You're exactly right. One Rex Reed.
Oh.
And there's a famous story about...
Never sit next to an aspiring literary lion when you were in college.
Your final exam in bioscience, and you arrived with a copy of a then bestseller, Patent Place by Grace Metalius. You read through the test, you scrawled Elizabeth Ann Cole across the examination, and you're headed for New York. True or false?
Well, no, I read Patent Place while I had to sit there during the exam. That's the only thing that's not... Yes, that's true.
Now, you get to New York. What's it like? Had you ever been to New York?
No, I'd never been north of Georgia.
So what was it like to get from Baton Rouge and good old Goodwood Avenue, where I lived? What was it like to get to New York?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean,
what'd you have? $135, something like that?
I think I had. I had $360-something that I had made, like, working in the summers, and I bought my plane ticket out of that, so I had whatever was left from that. And it was the Milk Run, you know, that flight that left New Orleans at midnight or something. And I mean, I'll show you how green I was, because I got on the airplane. It was all this great adventure, you know, and when they got, you know, before you land, you know, and the stewardess sort of says, "All right, we're going to be landing in Newark." And I thought, oh my God. I thought they didn't understand what I said because it was and I called the stewardess. I said, I'm terribly sorry, but I wanted to go to New York, not Newark. And she said, it's all right, do New York. And I said, oh, but I'd never seen snow until I got off the airplane. It was February the 8th, 1958, and I got off the airplane. I mean, and there was, you see, at that time, remember that it was a television program. It was a quiz show that was huge. It was like, was it the $64,000 question or something? And there was a doctor, I think, from South Louisiana, who was
yes,
like
a veterinarian. That's correct.
Yeah, he'd been winning and winning. He was on the same plane with me.
Is that right?
And so, and he was talking to me, and I mean, I told him, I was leaving home. I was going to New York City, and I had a room at the YWCA. It was going to be terrific. I was going to look for a job, and so he was. I look back now, and I know he was terribly bemused, really, but he was terribly kind. And so then two or three nights later, he said he was going to be on this quiz show, and why didn't I come and watch it, like sit in the audience and like that? And so I did. I gave him my number at the YWCA, and he called and he sent a car for me. And I went to and my mother never got over that, because that was, like, everybody in the world watched the program, but in Louisiana they particularly watched it because this band was winning all this money. And I remember, my mother didn't watch television, that's right. And the neighbor, Ms. Allen, called her up and said, Lucille, you're not going to believe this. Liz is on TV. And my mother said, are you crazy? You're crazy. She's probably in jail or something. They said, no, come on over here. She said, and my mother said she almost died because she walked, there I was.
Let me ask you a question. What would, and this is jumping way ahead because we haven't told the story of your monumental success. What would you have done if you hadn't have made it in New York? Suppose
made it? What do you mean by made it?
As an actress,
I wasn't planning to be an actress when I left.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to be an adventuress. I wanted to find out everything wicked and perverse and evil. I wanted to be like the heroine in a Hemingway novel. And I was going to find out what all that stuff was. Then I was going to do it as fast as I could. I was going to.
So success was not one of your goals.
Not in that. No. Escape and adventure, and somehow getting to Shanghai like Marlene Dietrich in an old movie. That was basically sort of.
Now you found a job as a designer's model, and this is interesting. You found it by thumbing through the yellow pages, isn't that right?
Well, more or less. There was. I'd worked. My mother sort of ran the agriculture department in Louisiana for years and years and years because she was the administrative assistant to the Commissioner of Agriculture, and that's a political job. But my mother was the one constant. I mean, she was the only person the farmers would talk to for about 25 years. And so in the summer, I made money like filing the brucellosis reports. And God, some of
heavy art.
Okay, so some of those farmers had dead cows that never got reported to the feds because I just was not. I didn't give good file, but. Why was I telling you that?
We were telling me how you became a model.
But I knew how to type a little and I could file. So I went to I looked up like employment agencies, right? And I called them and got beside the payphone and called them. And I went to this employment agency and said I wanted a job as a typist or filist or filing or something. And they looked at me. They realized that probably was not my strong card. She said, look, why don't I send you, because you could probably be a model. And I've modeled in Baton Rouge. And I was sort of a tall, thin, peculiar-looking size 5. And when I say designer's model, it sounds quite a bit better than it was. I mean, that's the lowest that there is. It means that you are the meat, in that you are like these. We're not talking about your Bill Blass or your Calvin Klein here. We're talking about like Jonathan Logan. It was sort of like a low-price sort of junior dresses. And the people, the so-called designers, have to have a live person that they actually make it on, right? And then you have to march around in those clothes in front of the buyers, and that's what I did. But so I got the job because they sent me they just happened to have lost the girl. So it had to do with the size that I was, not anything else.
All right, so you go aspiring to be an adventurous, and you're a model now at the bottom end of the scale. How do you get interested in the theater?
Well, I think probably subliminally, without admitting it to myself. I mean, like every other American girl, you want to be a movie star, right. Whatever that is. We don't even really know what that is. Now with the sort of media explosion, the exploitation of every aspect of that, it has no mystique anymore. It's still all lies. The public is never given a shred of truth about what that racket really is. But it doesn't have the mystique or the kind of there was always like an ephemeral thing. It didn't mean necessarily. It wasn't just being an actor. Something it meant. I don't know quite what it meant, but But I'd always been sort of such a failure. I mean, I was the one that they always shook their head and said, you know, if that girl just apply herself, I mean, she might be able to do something, you know. But so I didn't have the kind of confidence where I could say I want to do this or that. I mean, I just wanted to get out of town, you know. And
if you hadn't been an actress, what else would you have been?
Probably a criminal, most probably in jail.
In jail?
Mm-hmm.
Second story woman or
no, I would probably have been a scam
forger, scam
yeah, I would
artist,
have been a con woman.
sting. You lived in this is these early days now, smuggler. You lived in a fifth floor walk up with some other aspiring actresses.
Many times.
Bathtub was in the kitchen. John was down the hall.
Yes.
Pretty rough living, huh?
I mean, I thought it was great. Oh. I mean, I'll never forget that. I had no idea that it was not the best thing in the world, because it was just like all those books that I'd always read. You know, as long as my life was like some dime novel I'd read, then it was just fine by me. And but I'll never forget, there was another girl from Baton Rouge, from LSU, who came up, right? I mean, like after I was there for a few months, she came to New York too, right? I mean, she took one look at the peanut butter and the bread in the drawer, right, and the bathtub in the kitchen, and she went right back home to Daddy, got married within 2 months, and I've never heard from her again. So then I figured that maybe everybody didn't think this was so swell.
You also got a job on a television show, and I think that your title was wonderful.
Oh,
you were, quote, the chiffon, light pudding, and pie-filling girl. Right. Bill Cullen was the host of the show.
Yes.
Nice guy.
Wonderful man.
Seems to be.
Dear, dear man. He was so, I mean, I never knew him terribly well, because in those days, believe it or not, television was live, and commercials were live, you know, and so I had to be there, like, what was it, a couple of times a week, and dance around in my tutu, and with these pies.
I must tell you that it was Rex Reed who exposed that title so that to give proper...
Rex Reed had better shut up. He's going to be a cripple.
Now, you waited on tables. You did some singing in the village.
Yes.
And you were able to attend the Neighborhood Playhouse.
Well, you see, when I was a model, I mean, I immediately got to know the other models, and they were very streetwise, sort of New York. One of them was a Scandinavian woman who was married to a black man. I thought that was the most fascinating thing. I mean, it was just everything that they'd always told me that Yankees did, they did. It was wonderful. And I mean, it was the first time I ever heard anybody, the first time I ever met a Republican, you know? And, I mean, what's more, they said it out loud. I couldn't believe it.
There's 3 of them now, incidentally. Go ahead.
Seem to be more than that, my dear. There are even a few to be found in Louisiana, I'm ashamed to say.
You're right.
Anyway, I mean, but I'm the granddaughter of a Dixiecrat, so there you go. But what did you ask me?
All right, we were talking about Neighborhood Playhouse.
Oh, well, they let me know that I could make a lot more money in television commercials if I could talk, you see, and I had a very sort of heavy Louisiana accent that was, you know, sort of part cracker and part Kunas. And so so this friend of mine who was a painter, this guy that I'd gotten to know because he was a teacher at a college where he was at NYU, and I was in the village. I used to hang around NYU a lot, and I got to know him, and I think he sort of, he kind of probably knew more about who I was than I did, and he said, well, he said you should take some speech classes, and because I think down deep I wanted to go for it, but I had no idea, and I couldn't admit it. You know. So I
auditioned and you got into things though.
But no, you don't audition. It's the best drama school in America. I mean, it always has been, and it's got that reputation. And they have thousands and thousands of people that apply. It's a 2-year school. You're not allowed to work professionally while you're in the school. It's a college accredited, but it's an all day, every day you go. And they only accept, I think, 75 people into the first year, and they only ask 25 of those people back to the second year. And they do not audition you, because auditions are foolish. Particularly, they didn't want people that had done a lot of community theater, or people that had graduated from university drama departments, because their attitude was, they have to unlearn all this junk that they've been taught to begin to learn anything that's useful in the professional theater. And so they wanted people that were out of high school and that had not had a lot of experience, you know. And so you had a series of interviews. I had 3 interviews. And of course, you lie. They say, now you must understand, you have to not only be able to pay your tuition here, but you have to be able to support yourself without a job, because you will not have time to have a job. Oh, absolutely, yes, sure. Well, I mean, I went to school all day, and I worked waiting on tables till 4 o'clock in the morning. And, but yes, I was accepted into the Neighborhood Playhouse, and I think that was probably the first time in my life I ever had any feeling that was conscious, I belong here. I mean, boy, have I found my turf, you know. Because the first day I walked in there, it was like, I mean, I didn't think I'd be accepted. I mean, I sweated. And when I got the letter that said I just couldn't believe it. And when I walked in there the first day, it was like, it was the first time that I wasn't the peculiar one, the alien one, the crazy one. I mean, everybody else was as peculiar and crazy as I was. It was just wonderful. And I mean, and also, it was very, I mean, there was no room for democracy in art, thank God, but that was the first time that I ever experienced that because, I mean, there was no gesture. Do you know what I mean? They said, I mean, it was like they tell you, like in medical school or whatever, they say, you know, you walk in and David Pressman had written on this board, this huge board, acting is not is in capital letters and underlined 3 times. It is not feeling, believing, or thinking. And acting is behavior. It is doing. And he walked in and he said, I'm going to leave you here for a couple of hours. You all, he said, I want you to memorize that to where it'll be your dying words. And then he walked out.
Oh, well, what a beginning.
It was wonderful.
You know, in all the early interviews that we researched after you had begun to establish yourself in the theater, you always said, and I don't even know if you're aware of this, in every interview, and we must have collected 50 of them for this interview today, you said, I'm not the girl next door. And you said it almost in declamation, in protest, in explanation. I suspect you spent a lot of time explaining yourself to yourself and to the world at large and the people who are interested in successful people like you.
Well, I think I probably had to justify myself a lot in my life, you know, because people, I mean, I've had a lifetime of people saying, you know, why are you the way you are? And I mean, you say, well, what way am I? That I mean, what's the problem? You know, and they say, well, I mean, you're too. I mean, I've always been too something. You know, I mean, that's been true all my life, and so I had to justify and explain myself a lot. And in so doing, you wind up explaining yourself for yourself, probably.
Let me ask you a movie star question. Word of honor, it's the only one I'll ask, but
I'm not a movie star, but go ahead.
But I've got to. I think you'll understand when I ask the question. What's it like? Would you advise ladies to marry movie stars? You've been
Never.
married to 2 famous movie actors, James Fantino and George Papard.
Well, it depends. I mean, what kind of woman are you talking about?
Well,
I mean, if you're a woman that is a very nurturing woman, if you're basically a mother and you have no ego whatsoever, you have no pride at all, and you want to never really be rich, but live like you're terribly wealthy, and take care of an adult who, if you want to be a mother all your life, and be treated like the furniture by everyone, like by all his business associates, and you won't ever know anyone else but his business associates except for the other women whose career is shopping and lunch, fine, marry a movie star.
Goodness sakes, that's the most unencouraging thing that I've heard in a long time. You changed your name from Elizabeth Cole to Elizabeth Ashley for what must sound like very unique reasons, but really weren't so.
Not by choice.
And, well, it was so simple. The reason why, the Actors' Equity, the trade union, already had an Elizabeth Cole, isn't that right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, you stand there and you say, but it's my name.
Was that a trauma to change your name?
It was a shock.
It was.
And I was going to take my mother's maiden name, which was Ayer, A-Y-E-R, because I thought that was pretty, Elizabeth Ayer. And to show you how wonderful it all is on your ego, my agents were sitting there. They said, no, we've got another client named Eleanor Ayer. She looks just like you. She's exactly like you, and they'll get you mixed up.
You've participated in some things outside of the theater. For example,
mainly.
You've been an activist. You campaigned for Eugene McCarthy.
Oh, well, no. Let's get one thing terribly clear. I was, when you say, no, I did not campaign for Eugene McCarthy.
Some of the material I had you campaigning for McCarthy and for George McGovern. They're both very legitimate.
No.
Good
this is not
senators.
Jane Fonda you are dealing with here, please. No. I was very drawn to sort of radical activist movements. Yeah. I mean, I worked for SNCC before they threw the honkies out, you know. And simply I helped them with maps and roads because that was the summer they were going to come to Mississippi and teach the black, because there was that Mississippi had the literacy test then, and so they had to teach people to read and write well enough to pass that literacy test, and that was a huge movement. And I'll tell you something, I never in my life, and I grew up a Southerner. I mean, I grew up with the Confederate flag, and I still have one flying over my house in the Caribbean, and I never saw rampant, mean, vulgar racism until I saw some of those young persons from Columbia University in New York City who are going to come down to the South and show us what to do.
It's interesting.
Oh. Right.
Question, what actresses' work do you admire?
Oh, goodness, I mean, so many.
Who do you like? I mean, you would be such an authority. You're a great actress. Whose work do you like?
Well, I mean, my
on the stage.
My heroine. I mean, my great heroine. Very few people have probably heard of it. It was an actress named Kim Stanley,
yes.
who was the most powerful woman I ever saw on the stage. And she was like the female Marlon Brando. They were both at the Actors Studio at the same time. And with any great artist, I think madness and genius are like a horse race that are neck and neck, and sometimes madness wins. Although Kim Stanley stopped acting for like a long time, and but now she worked again. She played like Frances Farmer's mother in the film of Frances, and but I mean she did a film called The Goddess that was a little black and white movie that was made in the late 50s or early 60s. That is a classic. I mean, it's one of the most brilliant things you'll ever see. And I mean, Marlon Brando. We ask about actresses, but I mean, Marlon Brando is the man. Marlon Brando was the specter, because Marlon Brando, as an actor, as an artist, as his life as well as his work, he was the specter for people of my generation.
Are there
I think.
any roles that
But Katharine Hepburn, I mean,
Hepburn.
I admired her act. I think. I mean, I like her. I like
You've been compared to her.
I probably tried to emulate her in some ways because I emotionally am very empathetic, and also, I mean, I had a couple of very funny situations with her, which I adored. But I thought Lynn Fontanne, whom I saw in The Visit, I mean, that was just, it was so brilliant. But I mean, my generation has so many, I mean, just wonderful actors. I mean, you start with Jane Fonda, who's, I mean, people think it's much easier to act on film than on the stage, and that's not true at all. Not at all. For me, it's much more difficult. But I mean, the names would just be endless. I mean, one thinks of one's friends immediately. There's an actress named Brenda Vaccaro,
yes,
who I went to drama school with.
Who you also remind me of. Same quality of voice.
We have the fattest vocal cords in
yes.
show business.
Okay.
But I mean, it's endless. You know, it's.
Any roles that you would like to play that you haven't played?
I mean, many, of course. But I mean, what do you mean, like in terms of the
in the theater? Yeah, anything that you'd really like to sink your teeth into?
Well, of course. I mean, but there are things. It's like it's a time for a time. I think that it's very hard to be I hate the term, a serious actor. I hate that term. But it's difficult in this country because we don't have a system for it. It's discouraged, if anything. And the only people that usually live like that are the people that are living that way by default because they didn't succeed anywhere else. And I mean, they didn't get a series and they're not in the movies, and so that they wind up in rep or something. But it's like, I think that in the long haul, there's certain roles that you have to play at certain times in your life if you want to continue to have credibility. It's usually like several of them. I mean, I think I have the Lady Macbeth in my future. I'll have to do Streetcar because I swore to Tennessee that I would. I mean, Tennessee would not die until he got that.
And you are the ultimate Maggie the Cat in Cat in the Hat.
Well, that had my name on it, didn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to play Amanda Wingfield very much. I want to play that one in Morning Becomes Electra. I want to play the mother in that play. I want to. I mean, like that, you know.
You've been in this current tour, Agnes of God.
Oh, I want to play the Mad Woman of Chaillot.
Chaillot. Yes. You've been in this current tour since August.
Yes.
Yes. What's it like to live on the road and every night, you know, in different cities, go out on a stage and be someone else?
Great. I'd rather be on the road than anywhere. I mean, I am by nature nomadic, and I get very uncomfortable if I have to be in any one place too long. I mean, that's what I don't like about being on Broadway, because you're nailed. If you're in a hit, you're nailed there. Everybody knows where you are. It's in the newspaper every day that, you know, and people know where to find you. And the best thing I do is leave. I leave town better than I do.
Do you still live on a boat?
When I'm living my other life.
Yes, you do.
Well, you see, I did for quite a long time. When I fired my life every few years. I fired my life and I moved to the Caribbean, but and I mean, and I lived there the way until I ran out of money and I have to come back and go to work. But since I've been back working, the great American warriors of the Lord have decided that they're going to save the Caribbean from itself. And the minute the warriors of the Lord or people from Saturday Night Live or Interpol show up any place, leave town. And so I have to find another ocean.
Where do you think you'll go, Liz?
I think my next ocean will be the Indian Ocean. I want to take about 5 years, and I want to, somehow I'm going to have to blag my way into China, but I want to sail down the Pearl River, come out into the China Sea, and you sail around like India, all of that, and then you come down the east coast of Africa.
Now, when you do these things, surely you must miss the audience
Not
and
at all.
being Liz Ashley
Not
and applause
at all.
and people asking for autographs
My ego
and
is
poor
not based on
dopes
that.
like me interviewing you. Some of that must
I'm terribly fortunate. I don't miss it ever. I love anonymity. I'm not comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with
celebrity.
Well, see, I mean, celebrity, it's a ticket, you know, fame. See, I always thought fame would be great because I just assumed that if you got famous, you got rich.
Yeah.
Well, au contraire, you know. I mean, how did I get so famous? I don't have any money, you know what I mean? It's like, fame it's a ticket to ride. I mean, you have to have enough of it. It's currency in this business if you want to continue to work. You have to, I mean, they say in the business that if somebody is 35 and you've never heard of them, there's a reason. You know, there are no great undiscovered stars. There may be talent, but talent is cheap. You know, it's all the rest of it that makes it happen. And so that's probably true. I don't like to admit it, but it's probably true. And it's because there's the talent. Talent is not unique. Talent is not hard to find. But it's hunger and discipline and regime and madness and imagination, and it's all the rest of it that it's the cantilever under talent that is what will make it happen. And if I don't, it's so hard to explain. I think I had so much of that when I was very young, and it turned. I felt that it sure wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Ask Freddie Prinze. Anyway, I mean that literally. I will not apologize for that because that's an absolute metaphor of what I mean. It's such a dangerous thing for one's character, for one's humanity, for one's spiritual life. It's like it's 5 minutes of fun for a lifetime of hell, you know.
We've run out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, she entered the room like a blazing house, and the fire has blazed this entire 28 minutes. You've just spent, I think, some fascinating time with the great American actress out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Elizabeth Ashley. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Major funding for this production is provided by American Bank of Lafayette, the financial choice of the 80s. Additional funding provided by the Friends of LPB.